Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's class from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, the glories of Nityananda Ram. And today we're doing text 19. I'm sitting in for His Grace Vishnu Gadaprabhu, who is actually traveling at this point. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakacharya Stotara Satasisi Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakacharya Stotara Satasisi Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Chidatmani Shri Guru Kavi Shakti Namaste. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Pura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, text 19. brahmāṇḍe prakāśa tāra kṛṣṇera icchāya eka-i svarūpa tāra nāhi kāya brahmāṇḍe prakāśa tāra kṛṣṇera icchāya eka-i svarūpa tāra nāhi kāya brahmāṇḍe prakāśa tāra kṛṣṇera icchāya eka-i svarūpa tāra nāhi kāya. Anyone who'd like to sing, please do so.
brahmāṇḍe prakāśa tāra kṛṣṇera icchāya eka-i svarūpa tāra nāhi kāya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? All right, we'll do word for word. brahmāṇḍe, within the material world. Prakāśa, manifestation. Tāra, of it. kṛṣṇera icchāya, by the supreme will of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Eka-i, it is the same. Svarūpa, identity. Tāra, of it. Nāhi, not. Dui, two. Kāya, bodies. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Lord Kṛṣṇa. It is identical to that original Gokula. They are not two different bodies. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The above-mentioned dhammas are movable by the omnipotent will of Lord Kṛṣṇa. When Sri Krishna appears on the face of the earth, he can also make his dhammas appear without changing the original structure. One should not discriminate between the dhammas on the earth and those in the spiritual sky, thinking those on earth to be material and the original abodes to be spiritual. All of them are spiritual. Only for us, who cannot experience anything beyond matter in our present conditioned state, do the dhammas and the Lord himself in his archer form appear before us resembling matter to give us the facility to see spirit with material eyes. In the beginning, this may be difficult for a neophyte to understand, but in due course, when one is advanced in devotional service, it will be easier, and he will appreciate the Lord's presence in these tangible forms. Oma Gyanat Virandasya, Gyana Gyana Shalakaya, Chakshu Umalitam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutane Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Panaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Simati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunnivari Paschatya Deshatani. Namo Mahapadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gunatiche Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So the English translation again. Excuse me. That abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Lord Kṛṣṇa. It is identical to that original Gokula. They are not two different bodies. Hare Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada has translated Titanya Chaitamrita, which is actually first written by the instruction of Lord Chaitanya to Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. He wrote it when he was in his 90s. And so the body was quite frail. His vision was not that good. But the first instance, what we learned from what he did is no matter what condition you're in, the circumstances, or the physical state of your body, you should always be determined to serve the Lord one way or another. Srila Kaviraj Goswami had to travel from where he was, which I forget, but he was asked to go to Vrindavan. And that was quite a bit of travel. And these days you can just fly or drive. He walked. That was the means of transportation, the legs. And he didn't have good vision yet. He gave all praises to Lord Chaitanya, to Lord Nityananda, and to all the devotees for giving him such a wonderful, wonderful assignment. He felt humble, but he knew that the Lord will assist him, and therefore he did this without any reservation, even though he was at that advanced age, as far as the physical body goes. So, a number of things have been brought up here, and brahmāṇḍe, within this material world, specifically in India, especially on this planet, there are other universes and particular places where Krishna has his pastime. Now, what's being talked about from the translation is that Gokula, there is Gokula in the material world, there is Gokula in the spiritual world. There's Gokula actually in that planet, Goloka Vrindavan. But Krishna, by his will, conducts his pastime or sports, for another way to put it, both in the spiritual and the material world. He's the supreme enjoyer, and there's nothing he can't do. So by his own will, kṛṣṇera icchāya, by the supreme will of Lord Kṛṣṇa, he decided that there would be a replica of Goloka Vrindavan, particularly here also on this particular planet. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is explaining that this abode, Gokula, manifested in the material world, is manifested by the will of Krishna, and it's identical. Everything that is in Gokula in the spiritual world is also in Gokula here. So they are not two different bodies. They are the same. We can't even call it an extension. It is actually a replica. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned that these dhams are movable by the omnipotent will of Lord Kṛṣṇa. We can't do it. In fact, our situation is so dire, we can't even see, much less do anything with the dhams. We can't even see the dhams. Now, but by the will of the Lord, they can also appear in the material world. These dhams in the spiritual world. Later, we'll go into the Krishna Loka itself, and then we'll describe the different parts of it with their names and so on, then come back to Gokula. So when Krishna comes to this earth, he can also make his dhams appear. There is a lot about Krishna that he's unlimited, and therefore, from one lecture to another, we hear a little more about Krishna, we hear a little more about his form, we hear a little bit more about his paraphernalia, we hear a little bit more about his pastimes, and slowly but surely, we begin to get a picture of how tremendous Krishna is. So much so that by some lecture in the middle of it, a term came to me, and basically I just described it, said, Krishna is incredibly incredible. Try to wrap our minds around that. So even for this purport that Prabhupada described, he made an important point. He says, in the beginning, all of this may appear to be difficult for a neophyte. It's difficult for a neophyte to understand. But in due course, when one is advanced in devotional service, it will be easier. Then they will begin to appreciate the Lord's presence in these different ways of doing things. For one, if you go to the temple, what would be like a stage for other situations in auditorium, we don't use that as a stage. The principal person occupying the stage is Krishna himself in his Acchavigraha form. And we get to see him and also worship him with these material eyes. But Krishna is spiritual. He's always spiritual. But he can do everything, anything and everything by his will. Therefore, he, out of his mercy, has decided to appear in a form that we can see with our eyes. Some people may think that the Acchavigraha form is just a material structure that's there. That is the Lord himself. That is the Lord that owns everything, material and spiritual, that's appeared in that form by his mercy, because that's the only way we would be able to serve him. And devotional service is our lot, what we're required to do. That's our nature. And everybody that's not doing devotional service is not living according to his or her nature. So how to do that? Well, that's why the Lord appears in a form that makes it possible for us to serve him. That's also the reason why the Lord himself, even though he is the supreme controller, on the altar in his Acchavigraha form, he doesn't do anything. It is not because he can't do anything else either. Don't even think about it. This later on we'll talk about the pastime of Goidas Pandit so that we can understand a little bit more about the Acha form. This Acha form, he doesn't do anything so that we will be given the opportunity. It automatically gives us the opportunity to serve him to the fullest extent. Look at it another way. If there were some things that the Lord decides to do by himself, that kind of service will automatically be cut off from us. Let's say the Lord decides to dress. If the Lord decides to dress, we can't dress him. If the Lord decides to eat, we can't feed him. And so he doesn't do anything so that we will be able to do all of these other services so we can get spiritual credits and develop our love for Krishna also at the same time. That's why he appears in this form. And he also, just a spark of his splendor, he can manifest the whole material world. But in the Acha form, how tall is he? 2 feet, sometimes 1 foot, sometimes 9 inches. The biggest, maybe 4 feet. And in Vrindavan, you will see a full-size 6-footers. But what is that compared to eternity as far as length goes? So again, he has put himself in that size for us to be able to serve him. So that's why the Achabhika form or the deity form is there for us, for our convenience, by the Lord's mercy to enable us to serve him as fully as we can with what we got here in our bodies and what's also available on this planet. Krishna is always performing his pastimes, and he performs his pastimes in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha planets, where he is Lord Narayan and is worshipped in awe and reverence, and the farthermost planet called Golok Vrindavan or Krishna Loka. That's where Srila Prabhupada is trying to prepare us to go by his instructions if we follow them. That's where the greatest variety of relationship exists. No just awe and reverence. There can be friendship with Krishna. There can be parenting with Krishna. There can be conjugal, loving relationship with Krishna. All of that's available on that particular planet. Lord, Srila Prabhupada himself came from there. So we are very fortunate at this time because on other times, in fact, majority of the time in this material world, the existence of Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavan is not even known. It's not even known. On top of that, the sampradayas that we have, the 4 sampradayas, we are in the brahmāṇḍe Gaudiya sampradaya. There are different modes of worship of the Lord. And some of it would give you the chance to go to the Vaikuntha planets and the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. That gives the opportunity for us, because it's connected to Lord Chaitanya. He came in that line. We get to go to Goloka Vrindavan, that particular planet, which is the most versatile, and Krishna is not known there as king or master. He's known there based on our relationships with him. A friend, a servant, sometimes in neutral situations, neutrality, santaras. You can parent the Lord and also be a lover of the Lord. These are all very confidential pieces of information. We are here in the material world trying to get back to the spiritual world. And so for us, we have been given instructions on what to do in order to connect with the Lord and develop our love for the Lord, because that's even gone to a large extent. We don't know how to love Krishna. But by serving the devotees, by serving the spiritual master, and by serving the deity of the Lord, we will in fact gradually developed affection for all the devotees, Guru, and Krishna in his Accha form, or the deity form. So, in this particular text, there is mention of Gokula. There's Gokula in the spiritual world and Gokula also in the material world. Now, when devotees travel to India and they go to certain places of India, especially devotees travel for spiritual reasons, unless, of course, there are people from there who appeared there and then they have family members, they may go. But in Vrindavan, the whole Dham is about loving relationship with Krishna. Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada defines it as the place, it's not just the city, it's a place where everyone, all living entities, in human or non-human forms, are in intense loving relationship with the Lord. So you would see some that are residents there that the whole day they would chant the holy name of the Lord. They do very little materially for themselves, but they are always in samadhi. The mindset and the whole body being one of service to the Lord by chanting his holy name. They go on and on and on and on and on. Now, in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which the certain number of devotees in Philadelphia are now reading, there are 3 volumes of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. The second volume, the beginning of the second volume, chapter 1, it talks about the spiritual replicas, Vrindavan and Mathura. The Lord appeared in Mathura, which is very close to Vrindavan. The spiritual replicas of Vrindavan and Mathura in the material world, there's one special thing about them. They are also spiritual. That's why people go and say, okay, well, I'm in Mathura, but then they don't see, they see temples and so on, but they don't really see the Lord. They don't see the gopis. They don't see the Lord's father or mother, the ones the devotees have played that particular role to allow for the Lord to appear by his will. But those are spiritual places if you have the eyes to see. The whole bunch of pastimes, every sentence here, so we could expand on it in many, many, many ways. So we just kind of skimming over this. Vrindavan and Mathura. Mathura, the Lord appeared in Mathura and spent most of the rest of his time in Vrindavan. And then also in Dwarka. So Dwarka hasn't even come in the picture yet. We'll talk about that a little later. So Lord Brahma, who is the one given charge of this planet, he goes to sleep at night just like we do for his 12 hours. And his 12 hours are 4,320,000,000 years of our time. Now, at that time, when he goes to sleep, part of the material world, including this medium planetary system of which we are living now, they get destroyed, they get annihilated. When he wakes up, then he does, in fact, put it back together, just make the planets again. Now, so we are on the earth. We are on the earth. India is on the earth. And we have heard that Vrindavan and Mathura are in India. If you've seen it, then so much the better. But we've also heard that there's spiritual replicas of the Vrindavan and Mathura in the spiritual world. We can't see with our eyes. Well, then what happens when Lord Brahma goes to sleep? Maybe that's the first question. When Lord Brahma goes to sleep, the material world, with the exception of 4 planetary systems, heavenly planetary systems, they all get destroyed. So does Vrindavan and Mathura get destroyed also? Then if they do, then how spiritual are they? Because spiritual things cannot be destroyed. So Brihad Bhagavatamrita answers it by saying, the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, descends to Mathura in this world with all its beauty and other attributes to exhibit unprecedented playful activities, which we call pastimes. Now, when the entire universe or the three major planetary systems, most of it, are destroyed, the earthly Mathura and earthly Vrindavan become invisible. And then they merge back into Goloka. They merge back to Goloka. So they never destroyed when the planets, the material planets, are destroyed in Lord Brahma's night when they're sleeping. That's the first information Bhagavatamrita tells us. So in other words, Mathura is not destroyed. It remains unchanged. So in that sense, it's above the wheel of time, because time is through time that destruction happens. The time is the one that is the marker for appearance, for existence for a time, and for disappearance. We can even use our own selves. Everybody's got a birthday. Well, time that we were born. We even celebrate it every year. Seeing the number of years that we identify with time like that. And then after a while, we don't stay here anymore. We're gone. So time gives the beginning, the middle part, and also the end. But that's for our material life. Whatever is spiritual never gets destroyed. So Mathura being spiritual, the Lord is spiritual, he comes to perform his pastimes here on this earth in Mathura, first in Mathura. So Mathura is not destroyed. It remains unchanged. Now, so Bhagavad still explains that because the Lord's pastimes at that time are no longer perceivable in Mathura on earth, it seems like the personality of Godhead continues to enjoy himself only in the corresponding spiritual realm, Golok. And so Sri Golok is considered the ultimate destination of spiritual endeavor. But what we need to understand from this is when the material world is destroyed in Lord Brahma's night, then Mathura and Vrindavan, all of those replicas that are spiritual in nature, they don't get destroyed. They merge into what's in the spiritual world. So in the this chapter that we're dealing with, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, same chapter, chapter 5, and the texts before, it kind of describes our situation a little bit. We are trying to understand Krishna. The gross materialists, they don't even understand anything at all. To the gross materialists, Vaikuntha is like a mystery to them. They lack sufficient knowledge, and so they say God doesn't exist. But God not only is present, the kingdom of God is also here. And now, to come to Krishna consciousness, we hear more and more and more. But for the material world alone, there are billions and billions of planets. And they are a mystery to the ignorant person. Like now, material scientists are trying to do a little bit to try to penetrate this mystery. And even that, they're not even telling the truth half the time for what they're able to achieve. But then Srila Prabhupada says that the day will come when people of this earth will be able to travel in outer space, not just the astronauts, but people of this earth. And by the way, the Hopi Indians, they also had that prediction, that time will come that the people of this earth will be able to travel to see the variegatedness of millions of planets with their own eyes. And the Hopi Indians say that it's not like people will just take a spaceship and travel. The whole earth will be able to travel, can move in different places. Many things can happen that kind of blows our mind when we hear about it. But here we go. Chaitanya Charitamrita Prabhupada is also saying the time will come when people of this earth will be able to go to outer space within the same planet, being on this planet, and see the variegatedness of millions of planets with their own eyes, with our own eyes. Many of us probably won't live to see that day come. Not that we want to, because if you're really listening and if you know what Krishna consciousness is about, then your aim is to go back to Godhead, not really to see the earth going and, going to different planets and getting close to different planets and being able to perceive the wonderful creation of the material world. That's there, but the material world still remains for us a house of correction, and our aim is to go back. Now, the earlier text in this chapter describes more about the topmost planet, Kṛṣṇa. So the highest region in the spiritual sky is where it is at. It's called Kṛṣṇa. It has three divisions: Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokula. Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokula. And Sri Gokula, the highest of all, that's has other names like Praj and Goloka and Vrindavan. Those terms are used to describe Sri Gokula. But there's Dwarka and Mathura and Gokula. Those are the three divisions of Kṛṣṇa, the planet that Srila Prabhupada is trying to prepare us to go. Gokula is all-pervading. It is infinite. It is also supreme. It expands in the spiritual world, and then its replica is also here in the material world, without any restriction. And the Lord and the gopis, they perform their pastimes, and the Gopals perform their pastimes in the material world, in the spiritual world, as well as the replica here in the material world. At some point, there was a pastime which was described by Srila Radhanath Swami, and he talked about himself in a vision about Vrindavan. In his vision, I'll describe it briefly. He was with Srila Prabhupada, and he remembers clearly being with his spiritual master, Radhanath Swami's spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. He's a Prabhupada disciple. He's a guru by himself, but he's also Srila Prabhupada disciple. And he was describing this in his lecture. Srila Prabhupada was holding his cane, and there's a reason why I mentioned that. Then he went to a certain place, and he said they were in Vrindavan. They're Vrindavan here in India. This is in the vision now. And Srila Prabhupada was telling him, here's Krishna, here are the gopis, here's Srimati Radharani. And the direction in which they were standing, he pointed to Radhanath Swami with his walking stick. That's why I talked about he was holding his walking stick. Radhanath Swami says at first, he couldn't see anything, even though Srila Prabhupada was telling him, here they are. And then by Srila Prabhupada's own mercy, he somehow, and that's the only way I can put it, somehow got the eyes, the spiritual eyes, to when he said he saw them. They were all beautiful. They were all young, like early teens. And they were performing their pastimes. He didn't go into detail as to what pastimes, but he said he saw them. And this was the Vrindavan in India. So when one goes there, you see things around just like any other place. You see forest, but don't be deceived. For those who have the eyes to see, they can see the spiritual aspect of it. And those who don't, see just the material. Looks like everything is going on like what we expect in the regular, the woods, as we call it. But it is a certain level which we over time will get to from taking devotional service seriously, chanting the holy names of the Lord, staying away from offending anyone, hearing constantly. Then by the Lord's mercy, we show that kind of seriousness, then these things will begin to get open to us sometimes in visions, just like Radhanath Swami saw. It's not for Radhanath Swami alone. He was saying that to make the point that if we take devotional service seriously, These are all there for us to see. The things that we read won't remain just a mystery to us or something that we read and then find out, try to, do I even believe that or not? We go through all of that with the mind. We'll actually have visions. Everyone has that opportunity to have visions. And the visions are helpful in that once you see them, there's no question of not believing. You will definitely believe because you've seen it. Mm-hmm. Now, usually devotees don't like to talk about those visions so much. Mm-hmm. Because then it's like we're putting ourselves above somebody else. I've had a vision, you haven't had a vision, and so on. So it's not really discussed much, but in everybody's life, it will definitely happen if we take devotional service, loving devotional service, as our aim of life, and take that very seriously above anything and everything that we do. Mm-hmm. There is so much to describe. We shouldn't be attracted to just the temporary material life. Mm-hmm. That's explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, mm-hmm. Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, chapter 5, text 22. Yehi samspasa chaboga dukkha yona evate ajantavanta konteya nate suramate Buddha. The translation is that an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are just due to the contact with material senses. Otsanokunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So Krishna is describing to Arjuna, a person that's intelligent, they're not so concerned about things that are temporary and giving a fleeting enjoyment. Mm-hmm. A little bit of enjoyment in material senses. And then also the same material senses can give us trouble. Mm-hmm. The body gets old and so on. Mm-hmm. And all kinds of pains and all kinds of troubles with the weather and all kinds of troubles through disease. Mm-hmm. That's the way it is in the material world. There is some pleasure, very limited pleasure. Mm-hmm. And it comes and it goes. It's not sustained. And that's the life that we have here. And people who don't know anything about God don't realize that they're living a life that is difficult. They just think that through their own brains and their hard work, they can make life a little more pleasurable. The situation in Los Angeles is a very, very, very glaring example of what can happen. There's fires burning and so many acres of land have been charred along with million-dollar properties. And this continues. And now people, what do people do? Point fingers at others. But devotees do know that who's been given control of the rains? Indra. Can you not ask Indra for help? Can we not ask Indra for help? How many times that has happened even in Gitanagri when there was drought? The devotees just went around the temple. One devotee reminded us, Kalki Mataji, disciple of Satru Maharaj, said in a class, and I was sitting in there in the temple, we have drought. We can't grow anything. She said, what you do is have Harinam on the property. And that's exactly what we did. Took the kartals, the mudanga, and we just walked around the property and chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In Kirtan, we were singing. That evening, the rain started. And it continued for 3 days in a row. And it wasn't a downpour like a flooding type. It was very steady rain. And that's the one that's best for the soil because it takes its time and it doesn't flow over the land because it's slow. It will soak in. The rains came just from the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. But when the population has become so godless, then these things can happen And although the demigods are in mode of goodness and they don't really like to see this happen, but sometimes we have to learn our lesson. Why? Because we haven't turned to God. But they're speaking the way they know. We haven't turned to Krishna. As the devotees know, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But people are just thinking of the ways in which materially they can deal with it, and everybody's saying we can't. And then they start coming their statistics. This part of the world of Los Angeles and Palisades, the fire has been about 14% contained. So 86% is still burning then in that area. But when you don't connect with God, this is what happens. So even in the material world, the Lord's mercy is always here. The Lord's presence is always here. He's actually with us in our hearts. But if we don't turn to him, this is what can happen. So an intelligent person does not take part in these sources of misery, which California is finding out the hard way. All of these people thought that they were having the wonderful time of their life because they have big buildings and they have so much luxury. And then they turn around. Some of them have died. And property, plenty of it, lost. Big time, huge mansions gone. So you cannot, and that's the point this particular text is making. The wise man know that these things have a beginning and an end. You can only have pleasures up to a point and stop. So the wise man does not delight in them. So material sense pleasures, it comes because of a contact with the material senses. They are temporary because the body itself is temporary. And the liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. They want everlasting enjoyment in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what makes us happy. Even further in the same chapter, this is chapter 22 we're talking about, text 22 we're talking about, but the last text 29, also describes about peace. You want peace? Then you have to understand and believe and accept wholeheartedly that Kṛṣṇa is the one who is the benefactor of all activities, your penances, and everything that you struggle in Krishna consciousness to keep going with it based on the instructions that we've been given. It's all for Krishna's benefit. If we understand it that way and believe that it should be that way, and we accept it that way, we also accept the fact that he is the controller of everything. Everything comes from him. And even with the demigods that some people try to worship to get material things, he's controller of all of them. And then if we understand that he is the well-wishing friend for everyone, we accept these three: the benefactor of all austerities and penances, that he is the supreme controller of all that there is, and that he's a well-wishing friend. He loves us, friend of everyone. That person that thinks that way is able to disconnect, at least mentally, from the troubles of this world and therefore become peaceful. So the peace formula is even there in Bhagavad Gita. So finally, Lord Rishabhadev was also telling us in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text 1. Nāham deho deha bhajam niloke kastan kaman ahate vidbujam ye tapodivyam putraka yena sarvam suyed yatmat brahma sokyam tuanantam. Lord Rishabhadev had 100 sons. The first son was called Bharat, and the nation of India is named after Bharadvarsha. He was talking to his 100 sons before retiring from administration as a king. He came as a king. He was an incarnation of Supreme. He is an incarnation of Supreme Personality of God. And we have to speak in the present because the incarnations never disappear. Ever. They're always in some place. So Lord Maharaj Rishabhadev is saying to his sons, my dear sons, there's no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure. Yehi samspasa boga that we talked about earlier. The intelligent man does not deal with temporary things that have an end. And now Maharaj Rishabhadev was also saying, there's no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure. You can labor hard, but it better be for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should have that as your aim. Otherwise, labor is for nothing. You labor very hard just to, for your sense pleasure, to have a great time, like people are doing now. They work hard so that Friday comes around and say, thank God it's Friday. Then they want to go defile their bodies some more with drinks and smoking and all of those kind of things that are pillars of sinful life. So Maharaj Rishabhadev says, while we are in this human form of life, we shouldn't labor just for sense pleasure, because those pleasures are available to even animals, including the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, we should undergo penances in this life by which our existence will be purified. And as a result of that, we will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. So that's where our mindset should be at. Don't work hard just to satisfy your senses, material senses. We have the human form of life, and that is a blessing to us, because we know the 8 million other types of bodies, they can't even understand Krishna, much less try to serve him. And we are in that situation. And the majority of people in this earth are also not serving Krishna, even though they're in human bodies. So the few that are doing, we're very, very fortunate. Don't waste life just for sense gratification. They are available to animals. Even they do that. The same things that we try to, they do that in their own way, naturally. So we should actually change our lives. And wherever we are at in Krishna consciousness, we have to understand there's room for improvement. And we should be determined to live every day being a better devotee than the day before. And our intelligence helps us with where we are a little weak and we need a little improvement. Our intelligence will actually, if we really want to take Krishna consciousness seriously, we will get all the help, beginning from the instructions to the mind on what to do. And if we take that seriously, then we begin to see that our hearts open up, we become happier, even while we're still here, even though we know, Goloka Vrindavan is the place we have the greatest happiness. But even while we're here, we'll be happier than the average individual. So it is up to us how much we want to embrace Krishna consciousness and how seriously we want to take it. We should be determined to grow. And from that determination, we will actually stay enthusiastic. Enthusiasm comes from associating with those who are enthusiastic. So you can jumpstart your own enthusiasm. Association of devotees. Very, very, very important. And that way we'll grow. There is so much to the way things are set up by Krishna that is, we can't even talk about it in this short period of time. But it's all there for us. The final instruction, the final advice is all there for us. Krishna enjoys with his parts and parcels. Not by himself, with his parts and parcels. And if we turn away from material life and take spiritual life more seriously, material life should be lived only as is necessary. We do things that are necessary for us to maintain this body. But we should be charitable, giving to show our love and to increase our love for Krishna, charitable towards spiritual activities, especially in this society that Srila Prabhupada has put together for us to grow in Krishna consciousness, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Give charity to ISKCON, especially in the temple that you're at. It will open your heart, make you more loving. In that way, you can get closer and closer to Krishna, and you begin to live a life of happiness, even while we're not in the spiritual world just yet. It will start here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much for coming to hear. We all learn from this. Now, if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and share realizations also if you want to. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance. All good to your
Yeah,
Prabhupada. It was really amazing to hear the past the information that when the world comes to an end, that Goloka, that the holy dhams,
they don't get destroyed.
Yeah, they don't get destroyed and they get merged into the spiritual world. That was like that was like mind blowing. That was like mind blowing. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, just thinking about it is like giving me goosebumps,
That's
That
we had Bhagavatamrita giving that information.
Yeah, Brihad Bhagavatamritam is really deep. I know that, really, really deep. Like it, yeah. So thank you for, sharing that. Just wanted to just share that. That was really powerful to actually know, that these beautiful
This is how it
places.
works, yeah.
Yeah. That was really nice. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's so much more, and I just kind of there's so many more things to talk about, but this thing is unlimited. So in so many ways, how he sets things up and how he behaves. So we'll say just a little more. So in India, even though if you don't have the spiritual eyes, you can't see, but the trees that are there are desire trees. Whatever you want, you can get. But if we don't connect with it spiritually, then it doesn't happen for us. But it does, in fact, that's the nature of them. Krishna has actually used his energies to cover those who cover Vrindavan to those who look at it materially. Then it will stay material to us. Even the deities are Krishna. But if we look at them materially, then they'll remain material. It's like looking at the material object. But they're not. That is the Lord himself. When he comes, again, this is in Garga Samhita. The Lord comes, when he comes to the material world, and for this particular universe, this planet Earth, India, in Vrindavan, sometimes, as the Garga Samhita describes, at night, when the gopis join in the pastimes of the Lord, he sometimes allows the decorations by the gopis to be as is. They decorate the place nicely so they can have their rasa dance. And other times too, he might decide to bring a city from the spiritual world to the Vrindavan forest. And along with all the gems and the different assembly halls and all of that, to the forest, to the Vrindavan forest. So he turns it into like a city. But if you don't have those spiritual eyes, you cannot see. And the Lord has his pastimes with it. I mean, the ground itself is just studded with all kinds of jewels. The spiritual world is incredible. We have been gone for lifetimes after lifetimes, so now we're hearing it. It sounds like a fairy tale, but that's our actual home. This is jail, so we don't have much here. And the Lord performs his pastime. And there was another situation where the gopis had actually performed the Ras dance one night with Krishna. And usually around 3 o'clock, they're going back home. The gopis said that they wanted to continue a little longer. They told Krishna that. And in love, because everything is done in love, so Krishna decided, all right, so we'll just have some more. We extend the night. See, Krishna is time. Krishna controls time through Mahavishnu, set up time. And Mahavishnu is an expansion of the Lord, expansion of the Lord. So Krishna definitely controls time. He allowed the gopis to dance with him for another, now it may be difficult to take in, this is we are all learning, 4,320,000,000 years. The gopis did not even see that happen. For them, when they are with Krishna, time goes very fast. That's why they even made, plea that Krishna, let's just stay a little longer and then some more. But that long, 4 more billion years. And the next morning, everybody got up feeling that they had just had a night's sleep like before. Everybody felt that they had a night's sleep just like before. But Krishna had actually extended the night that long. So he owns our bodies. Therefore, he can even make us feel like we've been overnight when we've been sleeping that long. That is Krishna. That is Krishna. Shiva Prabhupada said, that is Krishna. Nothing is impossible for Krishna. And when you develop love for Krishna, then he can adjust things and adjust even time to suit how you want to serve him. Hare Krishna. Thank you for bringing the comment and the takeaway. Yes, the replicas don't get destroyed either. They merge to see Golok. Any other comments or questions? This information is on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Chaitanya Charitamrita is the highest in terms of understanding of spirituality. So sometimes it may sound like a fairy tale to some of us, but in time, as you grow, Sri Prabhupada said in the purport, it may be difficult for neophytes to understand it, and then you get a little bit, you get a little bit, you get a little bit, and what really happens to help our understanding is when we serve with determination, with enthusiasm, with patience, and we're not offensive, then Krishna begins to shut our material eyes down and begin to reveal things, what we call a vision to us. So we get to see what it is like on the other side that we're preparing to go. And that becomes mind-blowing, but it also increases our faith like anything. Once you see we have visions, it increases our faith like anything. You may be quiet about it, you're not supposed to talk about those things so much. But your faith will go way up there. Okay, so these things are true. I'm not in that situation yet to understand. But a little bit of revelation, and a little bit of, even when we're chanting, I'll just add this one more point and then we'll stop, unless somebody else wants to ask a question. Even when we're chanting, the chanting is calling on the names of Radha Krishna, and it can really, really, really awaken the soul so that we just feel in this physical body a very, very, very wonderful feeling of love in the heart. And it comes with intense happiness from the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. First, we have to focus. And then from there, it gets to the heart. And many people, if that happens to them, they react, on the physical body acts in different ways. And Lord Chaitanya has already described it. Tears are flowing from our eyes, and hair standing on end, those kind of things, you've read about them, but it does happen even to this physical body. It all depends on how seriously we take and how determined, how eager we are to serve the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Hare Krishna. Any other points or questions? If not, it's a gradual process. We'll get there. Nobody should be discouraged. If you haven't had any visions, don't worry about it. The visions is not the main thing. Going back to Godhead is the main thing. You don't have to have visions before you're allowed. The vision is just a mercy. Extra help here and there. That's all. We're not saying it's a requirement that you have visions of that nature. Panchakalpatarubhascha kripa sundibhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you again for coming. Hare Krishna. Have a nice, wonderful Krishna consciousness day.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.